Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Tuesday everybody. Today begins China's National College Entrance Exam. Best of luck to all those students. Now before we jump into the first part, yesterday, just quickly, we discussed that US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said on Sunday that the US president had directed his team to explore lifting some tariffs imposed on China during the Trump era as a tool to mitigate high inflation. It appears that the hundreds of billions of dollars worth of tariffs on PRC goods imposed during the Trump administration is a policy dividing the current Biden White House, or at least is still up for debate. One day after Ms. Raimondo made her statement, yesterday, Monday, U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai said that fighting inflation is a more complicated issue than can be addressed with a singular focus on China tariffs, and that it was important to bring a, quote, thoughtful, deliberate, strategic, end quote, approach to the US-China trade relationship. So it seems that this question of tariffs is very much to be continued. Okay, first up, Beijing and the COVID situation across the country. On Monday, yesterday, Beijing reported no new locally transmitted COVID-19 cases, and that the situation is now officially under control. While Beijing did not see anything like the devastating lockdown that we saw in Shanghai, large parts of the capital, including the wealthy district of Chaoyang, had been under a state of de facto soft lockdown for weeks now. Things are looking to be returning to normal, however, by PRC standards this week. Beijing relaxed COVID rules for most of the city's districts on Monday, allowing restaurants there to restart dine-in services in all districts except Fengtai and some parts of Changping. Scenic areas, parks and indoor venues like cinemas at 75% capacity will reopen yesterday too. As we have seen in other cities across the country, mass testing has been rolled out. Residents who wanted to enter and want to continue to enter public venues or office buildings will need to hold a negative COVID test result obtained within 72 hours. We are seeing cities move from 48 hours to 72 hours as the requirement, likely to reduce economic and time costs. Most primary and middle school students will go back to school from June 13th. While this is great news for the residents of Beijing, the national game of whack-a-mole continues. Yesterday we discussed new community cases being discovered in Shanghai, which has resulted in residential compounds being thrown back into lockdown. Other cities in the country are also fighting small outbreaks and implementing painful lockdowns. For example, on Sunday, a region in the northern province of Nemangul, or Inner Mongolia, discovered dozens of cases. In response, the local authorities put 35 residential communities under lockdown. Next up, Taiwan. If you guys are enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the like button, it's a huge help. And for anyone who wants to go the extra mile and help keep this channel sustainable, which is a tremendous help, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee and crypto links are in the description below. Thank you everyone for the ongoing support. On May 9th, the US State Department website page on Taiwan was updated, with the update removing the statement, "We do not support Taiwan independence." Now, less than a month later, the website has been updated once again to include this phrase, "We do not support Taiwan independence." Reference to the Taiwan Relations Act and the 6 assurances to defend Taiwan, which were added last month, remain in this most updated version, however. This change back would be more consistent with recent speeches on Taiwan policy by both Secretary of State Blinken as well as US President Joe Biden. However, the flip-flop in language is not a flattering display for the State Department and risks sending confused signals to allies in East Asia. On the development, Washington-based veteran China analyst Bill Bishop made the following observation, quote, "This change by the State Department may reflect consistency with the history and current policy, but the back and forth is embarrassing. The story I heard, but have not confirmed, is that the original deletion was made by a mid-level bureaucrat who had not gotten higher-level clearance, which, if true, would make it even worse." End quote. The flip-flop in language has also been a huge gift for Chinese state media, which presented the development domestically and they have been writing a lot about it these last few days as 1, evidence that the world recognizes Taiwan as part of China, and 2, evidence of China's power on the world stage, even towards the United States. Quote, "The back and forth of the US State Department in its fact sheet over whether or not it supports Taiwan independence is not only akin to a joke, but also lays bare the US's anxiety over the Taiwan question, deriving from its incapacity matching its action with ambition in the face of China." End quote. Now, while we're on Taiwan, I will leave you with this comment by Chen Wenling, chief economist of the China Center for International Economic Exchanges, at a recent event called the China-US Forum, organized by Renmin University in Beijing. This is what he expressed at the forum. Quote, "In the event that the United States and the West impose destructive Russia-like sanctions on China, we must recover Taiwan province and seize TSMC, an enterprise originally belonging to China, back into our hands. They are speeding up their transfer to the United States, and we must not let all the goals of their transfer be realized if 6 factories are to be established in the United States." End quote. Now, originally here, we were going to explore the recent incidents between Australian and Canadian military operations and the People's Liberation Army Air Force in recent weeks, but there are still aspects of the story that are developing, so instead we're going to discuss that tomorrow, and in today's video with the Chinese economy. And for today, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to look at 3 separate observations from experts on the theme of whether China is stuck in the so-called middle income trap. Now, the first of these observations is from the British publication The Economist. Quote, "The blizzard of fines, new regulations and purges, a savage but incomplete crackdown on the property sector, responsible for over a fifth of GDP, has led to a funding crunch. One reason why housing sales fell by 47% in April compared with the year earlier. Xi's economic model involves expanding the scope of the least productive part of the economy, the government-run one." End quote. In response to this article from The Economist, James Bradford DeLong, professor of economics at Berkeley, expressed that he is very pessimistic too about China's politics and pessimistic about China's economics, and that, quote, "I think there is a good chance that it is caught in the middle income trap." End quote. He then went on to say that there are 10 important aspects of the situation right now. The first being, quote, "China's growth has created 3 Chinas. The Spain-level 60 million megacity growth poles, which also possess the world's second leading high-tech economy. The Poland-level 300 million coastal economy, which is the world's largest export manufacturing machine ever, and which is mostly integrated with the rest of the world, much more than with China's interior, and the Peru-level 1 billion interior economy, whose performance has been very good by Global South standards, but subpar by Pacific Rim standards." Then, in response to this observation on the observation of The Economist, Professor Michael Pettis of Peking University made his own observations today. Quote, "The very smart Brad DeLong thinks there is a very good chance that China will get caught in the middle income trap. I'm not sure what the middle income trap is, but whatever it is, I agree with him. I didn't read the Economist article to which he refers, but I believe it argues that if only Beijing returned to its old market-friendly ways, all would be well. I disagree. China's slowdown is not a consequence of any recent shift in policy, but rather was implicit in the growing imbalances of the past 10 to 15 years. So was the much regretted and fairly automatic enlargement of the state sector. As I see it, there are a limited number of paths China can follow, and the only ones that involve continued high growth rates require highly unlikely institutional reforms and a major shift from the supply-side orientation of the past 3 to 4 decades. Beijing's choice isn't between market-friendly policies that restore high GDP growth and anti-market policies that slow growth sharply. It is between redistribution policies that lead to slower but sustainable growth and policies that don't." End quote. Okay, that is today's episode. Let me know your thoughts on what we covered today, particularly in those 3 observations at the end on the middle income trap. I would love to hear what you guys think. But that is today's episode. See you tomorrow.